Assalamu alaikum everyone. Привет, здравствуйте. So in this video, I don't know how long this is going to be, but I'm just going to go through how to write all the letters in the Russian alphabet one at a time. So here, this is just in printing. I didn't do this on stream or while recording because this is just to be able to recognize the forms of the letters in the book. So because the book teaches the pronunciation of the letters, I'm not going to go through that just yet. I'm just going to go through how I write the different letters in cursive and maybe in printing. Just a couple of notes about each of the letters. And then if you guys have any questions, then you can ask me on our next call. So I'm just going to get rid of the alphabet that I've written out here. We'll go one letter at a time. And I'll write out the letter in printing first, somewhere in the corner, and then we'll write out how it looks in cursive. And we'll go from there. So, our first letter is A, first letter of the Russian alphabet, as it is in many alphabets. And I'm just going to make like the lines for when you're teaching a young child how to write the letters, just so that we can see kind of how big the letters are supposed to be, because some of them, there'll be letters that kind of go below the line that most letters sit on. So for instance, the letter A, the capital A takes the full height of your line on the page, but certain letters they'll be bigger or smaller depending on which letter we're looking at. So I'm just going to leave these lines here as a guide, and then I'm going to do my actual writing of the letters kind of over in this white space over here. But these lines are here just to give us some idea of when we have a letter that goes below the line that you're writing on or above the halfway mark. So we'll start with A, which looks like this. Nothing too crazy, I think, in the cursive. Now, for me, when I started learning cursive in English, I used to write my A's like this, like with a loop. And my Russian professor said that in Russian they don't do that, but I think it would be fine if you wanted to do it this way. There's also some people, they'll write their cursive capital A's like it's just a very large lowercase a. So I think that would be fine as well. But this is the way I was sort of taught, or when I was learning the Russian script. So that's A. Next one is B, which looks like this in printing. And in cursive, the capital B looks like this. And I think you have freedom to decide whether you want this line to be curvy or just flat on top. I like to give it a little bit of a curve. And then the lowercase letter is also basically just the same. So lowercase letter is basically the same. I make this, this swirl, the squiggle, and then I would continue from here with the rest of my words. So for instance, if I wanted to make a word like быть, to be, then I would write that like so. So I make my lowercase b, and then I lift the pen, and then I start again here for the next letter. So that's it for b. Next we have v, which looks like an English B, and it's written in cursive very much like an English B as well. So the capital V looks like this, and the lowercase v looks like that, just like the lowercase b in cursive in English. And you can see that the lowercase, even though in printing it's small, it's half the height of the capital, in cursive it tends to be taller. You could try if you wanted to make it small, but I think even Russians, when they write their cursive v, the lowercase one, it still ends up being very tall. So I try to write it as a tall letter as well. So if I wanted to write the word vot, I would have a tall V, and then the rest of my word. But yeah, so that's it for V. Next letter is G. This is the Russian G. Looks like this. And the capital version of this letter looks like this. So it's very similar to the B. It just is missing this loop down here, just like the B, it's got an extra loop down here. So G, it looks very similar in the capital form, but its lowercase is a little bit different. Its lowercase looks like a backwards S, like the letter S written backwards. And that's, I don't know why they've chosen to do it that way, but also when you see typed Russian, when they have these letters in italics, your capital G might look like this in italics, but your lowercase g will look like a backwards S in italics as well. So that's probably where this comes from. So if you're writing a word like, I don't know, something like грудь. I don't know if there's a грудь, maybe, whatever. If you were to write something like this, or maybe it's a simpler word, год, a year, год, that would be written like this. So there's your lowercase g. And then the next letter we're going to look at is this one here. That's D. D is a little bit interesting because in printing it looks like this when it's printed. A lot of people so like printing meaning like on a computer, but when people print like handwrite one letter at a time, a lot of times it'll be a triangle. It'll be something like this. And especially when people are printing, the lowercase, it's a very interesting combination. The capital letter looks like a D in English, and the lowercase letter looks like a G in English. So this happens for their cursive as well as their printing, is that you'll see some people that handwrite it like this, and you'll see some people that write capital D like this and lowercase d like this. So in cursive, this is their capital D, which looks like the English capital D, and their lowercase looks like an English lowercase g. So again, in the example word got, that would be G-O-D. And there's your D, even though it looks like a G. So it can be a little bit confusing, but yeah, that's the letter D. It's a little bit strange because it has so many different ways that it can appear in text. But with practice, inshallah, it'll get easier. Next is ye. This is very similar to an English E in both capital and lowercase forms. This, if you want, I think you can get fancy with the capital E if you want to put a loop at the top. I've seen some people put this loop here. When I was learning cursive, I was taught to put this loop up here, but I think the textbook teaches it this way. So however you like. And the next letter is yo, which is just a ye, but with two dots. So nothing changes except that we add the dots here as well. And just a reminder to everybody that a lot of times for native Russians, they'll write a word and they'll use ye when they really mean yo. That's not two dots. When they really mean yo. So a word like живешь, you live, like you live in, a certain place. Ты живешь, but a lot of times they won't write these two dots. So it'll look like живешь, but it's still pronounced живешь. The dots are to be understood to be there. So that's just a reminder about this letter. The next letter is Ж. Ж. Yes. Ж, which looks like this in printing. On the computer, it looks a little bit different. This is how I print it. In cursive, it looks like this in the capital, and the same thing but smaller in the lowercase. So it's a little bit of a complicated letter, so I'll do that one more time up here. So we start with the left part, then the middle part, then the right part. of these three. So we've got like this part, and this part that all need to be drawn in. So that we write that as the left part first, then the middle part, then the right part. And it can be a little bit intimidating the first time, but inshallah that'll get easier with practice. The next letter is Z, which looks like a 3. And this looks very similar, in fact, to how we write our Zs in English, in cursive at least, in English, because it looks like a 3. And I'm starting to suspect that the reason it looks like a 3 in English, in Roman letters, is probably because it was borrowed from the fact that this is a Z in Cyrillic letters, in Russian. I don't know how that happened, but it's very convenient to anybody who knows handwriting in English that the Z in cursive in Russian starts to make a lot more sense when you realize that the English Z, or the English Z in cursive, or Z to you Americans, looks like the Russian Z. Next we have E, which looks like an English U in cursive. And you'll also see sometimes in italicized fonts on the computer, E looks like a U in italicized fonts as well. And so people might handwrite it this way as well. The faster you get at handwriting your E's, the more they might start to look like an English U rather than a backwards N. So that's E, and the next letter is I kratkaya, that's short I, that's I kratkaya. Where remember that this O is pronounced like an A because the stress is here, kratkaya. So this is almost like it's kaya, kratkaya. I kratkaya, this is the short I, and it looks exactly the same, but with it's carrying this mark on top. I like to draw that extra mark kind of like this, but I don't think there's anything wrong with doing it like that or doing it like this. As long as it's an E with something on top of it, that makes it I kratkaya, the Y sound. Next letter is K. 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 Capital form looks like this, and the lowercase form looks like just a smaller version of it. This is different from in English, where our lowercase k is also a tall letter. In Russian, the lowercase k is a smaller letter. It's only half the height of the taller one. So that's something to watch out for. The next letter is L. Oops, I should do this the other way first. So L, which looks like this. In typeface, in printed Russian, like on a computer, but often will be handwritten like this, just like how the D gets handwritten kind of like a triangle. The L can be very pointy as well. And then when we write it in cursive, it starts with a little hook at the beginning, and then basically just, you go up and you come back down, and same in the lowercase. But this hook is extremely, extremely important when you're writing your L's in Russian. And the reason for that is we have a few different letters. I say we, I'm not Russian. But we have a few different letters that look like, they have a lot of this going on. So for instance, we'll see one of these, we've seen one of these already. We've seen E that does this, I kratkaya as well. But later we're going to see that the letter sh also looks like this, and so does ts looks like this. So there's a lot of letters that they just they keep going up and down and up and down. And it can be very hard to tell whether one of these letters is E or L or something else. So the reason, the way that we get around that in Russian is that your cursive L must carry a little hook at the beginning. So if we're writing a word like жил, so like lived in the past tense, жил, we'd write that as je. Whoops, let me not drop my whiteboard. So we write that first as je, e, and then we have to put this little hook before our L. So hopefully you guys can see the difference here, that this is E. It comes straight from the previous letter, and then we make our loops. The L, we have to make this little hook first, and then go up before we continue. So this is what tells you that your next letter is an L. And then similarly, we're going to run into this same idea with our next letter, M, because the cursive M looks very much like, so we just saw the L, which looks like this. The cursive M looks like this, but also with this hook in front. So I'll show you that. So our cursive capital M will do like this, and our cursive lowercase m like this, where this hook is very, very important to include. So I'll show you an example word of that. So that could be something like the name Vadim. The name Vadim, if we write that out. So we start with V, A, D, E, and then our hook, and then the M. So I should make that a little bit differently. So our little hook, and then the M. And it's usually very rounded at the bottom. So it doesn't look like this. It looks like a U almost, but it has this hook at the front. So I'll write this one more time up here. Vadim, V, A, D, E, hook, and the rest of the M. So that little hook there, that's what's telling us that this is an M and not another E, because that would also look like a U. So hopefully that makes sense. Now we'll continue with the next letter, which is N. But looks like an H in English. So this is the N. You could write it with a loop. You could just go across with just a line going across. Sorry, I'm just going to turn my phone sound off so that doesn't keep happening. Yeah, so here's our N, capital N, and the lowercase n, it doesn't look like, in English a lowercase h looks like this. We're not going to have that. In Russian, the lowercase n tries to look like a capital N. And the way I was taught to write it is you do the left side, then without lifting the pen, you go across the middle, and you do the right side. And there's your lowercase n. Next up we have O, which is a very simple letter to write. But one thing to note is that in English, when we're writing in cursive, our O's connect from the top, like this in English. In Russian, they don't. So in Russian, if you were writing God, this being a D, this O and this D will connect from the bottom. So G, O, and then instead of looping through here, we start over from here, God. And so they connect at the bottom down here. So that's what we have for O. And the next letter we have is P. P. So this looks like this, like the Greek letter pi that we see in maths all the time, like this in the capital, and in lowercase, it looks like a lowercase n in English. So it looks like this. Basically, in English, a lot of times you'll see it printed like this as well. In italics, it's printed as a lowercase n. in English. So a word like stop. Word like stop. We haven't seen a couple of these letters yet, but just so we can focus on the P, it looks like a lowercase n in English. Our next letter is R, the Russian R, and the capital version of it looks very much like an English P. The lowercase version also looks like a P. When I was learning cursive, I was taught that the P should close like this. You should close the loop, but not everybody does. I think my dad, when he was learning cursive, he learned his lowercase p like this. The Russian R looks very similar. And since Russia and India had very strong ties, I'm not surprised that they have this similarity between them, but I don't know where that style comes from. But that's just something to be aware of, that Russians typically, their lowercase p, they won't close the loop. Next we have S. Nothing revolutionary here, just looks like the English C. Yeah, nothing to add really for the letter S. Then we have T, which in italics, the capital T might still look like this, but the lowercase t looks like an M in italics, and this is reflected in the cursive, where the capital T looks like this, and the lowercase t looks like an M. And this letter is the reason why the Russian M has to look a different way, and it can't look like this, is because this is already taken by the letter T. Then we have U, which looks like this in printing. Now when I write this, the capital U, I don't believe I draw it below the line. Oh, maybe I do. I think I draw this below the line. When I do my capital U, I tend to go below the line. Yeah, I think I do. I'm not sure you're supposed to. Maybe you're supposed to just do it like this and then carry on from here. But I often, just because it looks so much like an English Y, I tend to go below, and people tend not to have too much trouble with it. But I don't think this is right. I think we should stick to doing the capital U like this without going below the line. And the reason for it is going to come up in a couple of letters when we look at this letter. We're going to see why it's important not to confuse the two. But our lowercase u can look like this, and it'll go below the line. So there's our capital and our lowercase u. I think really what happens is when I handwrite u, or when I handwrite in Russian, I think my u, if it ever shows up at the start of a word, I print that, and then I handwrite everything else. I write everything in cursive after that. But anyway, the next letter is F, which looks like this in printing, and in cursive, like so, and then you continue on from here. And in the lowercase, I have it go all the way up to the top, and then go below the line, and then I carry on from here. So these two loops line up with, like they should be, if I were to draw it in this space, the lowercase loops, they'll sit right in here. The uppercase, the capital F, they'll sit a little bit higher. So that's the difference for me between the capital and the lowercase, but I don't know which is right, or if there's I don't know if that's exactly right, but nobody's given me any trouble for it before, so even if it's not perfect, it's readable. And then we have kha, which looks like an X. And so this is written like so. And I typically, I don't lift my pen normally in the middle when I'm writing this letter, but I don't think there's anything wrong with it. So that's ha. Next we have tse. And this letter, this is the one that it looks like a U, and then it has this little tail at the end of it. So it's important to distinguish it both from E, which looks like this in cursive, and U, which looks like this in cursive. So that's why we want to be careful in how we write these two letters, is that this U, if it has a loop, if it's going down and has a loop, this one also has a loop, but in a different place, right? It's not here, but it's a little bit off to the side. And similarly, our lowercase one will also have this little tail that sticks out at the end of it. And we're going to see this tail come up one more time as well. So that's tse, ha, tse, che. Next letter is che. The capital form. Oh, maybe the capital of this is this. I'll have to check this one. It's been a while. I don't write in Russian cursive that often, and I did not consult the book before I made this. But che, just be careful. Basically, between your che and your U, make sure that the tails go in different directions so that you can tell apart these two letters. And your small che will look like this as well. So nothing wrong with that. Sorry about my confusion with a couple of these letters. It's, I don't, like I said on our call, it's important to be able to read Russian cursive, but I don't tend to write in it very much. But we will review it with the book in the coming days, inshallah, and then I'll answer any questions that you might have after that. And then we have sha, which looks like this in printing, and in cursive it looks like a very large W, and the lowercase one also looks like a W. And this is one of those letters that, we have E, we have L, we have M, and we have tse, and now we have sha. That they all kind of have this pattern of just going up and down and up and down. And so if you have a bunch of these letters one after another, it can be very difficult to tell apart which one's which. And that's why some of them have this little hook at the start. The L and the M have this hook at the start, so that we can tell it apart from all these other letters. And the next letter is the other sh. It's like sh, which is a little different. It's just got this little tail on the end. And so in cursive, it's also just got this little tail on the end. So if I were to write that out in cursive, it looks like this. So it looks like a sh, and then it's just this extra little piece on the end for the tail. That's sh. Then we have the hard sign, which I believe is the rarest letter in Russian. You'll see it very, very infrequently. But it looks something like this. And so it can connect to the previous letter with a little tick up here. Then we have U, which is a sound that doesn't exist in most languages. But this letter, you'll never really see it as a capital. So I don't even know if the book teaches it as a capital letter, because no words ever begin with this. But as a lowercase letter, you join the two bits together. So you have the part that looks like a lowercase b, or a 6, or a thaw, depending on what language you're learning from. And then something that looks a little different. Something that looks like a 1 or an aleph. So you've got these two separate pieces. but in cursive they're joined as one. So like so. Ui. And then we have the soft sign. And similar to the hard sign, I know I drew the capital hard sign for consistency, but it doesn't really exist. Same thing with the soft sign. It doesn't exist as a capital letter. So none of the hard sign, U, and the soft sign, none of them exist as capital letters. So this one, as a lowercase letter, just looks like that. So if you have a word like, żyć, to live, it ends with this soft sign. So if you wanted to write that in cursive, then you have je, e, and then your T looks like an M, and then there's your soft sign. So we'll get comfortable with the soft sign whenever we're writing in cursive, because the verbs in the infinitive form, they'll almost always end in T soft sign. Ch. Almost done. 3 letters to go. Next one is E, or oborotne. That's like maybe oborotne, I believe. Something like this. That's reversed E. It's an E that it's facing the other way. And it looks like this and like this in cursive. So very similar to how it looks in printing. But also a relatively uncommon letter. And then we have 2 that I enjoy a lot. U, which looks like this. And so just as the 2 pieces are connected in printing, so too are they connected in cursive. And then our last letter is Ya, which looks like a backwards R, and it's written like this in the capital and like this in the lowercase. Now, for those of you that have learned English cursive, you may have learned the lowercase r in English to look like this. Not everybody puts the loop in there. Some people, they'll write the lowercase r like that. But I learned it like this, so some of you might have learned it like this as well. I think the reason the English lowercase r looks like this is I think it's been taken from the backwards R that exists in Russian. Because if you try to write ya, but then you accidentally go too far before you bring the line back down, you're very, very close. If you move your hand towards the right too quickly while you're writing a ya, it's going to come out looking like the cursive R in English. So that's just you don't need to know that, but this is what the ya looks like, and that's just my theory for where we got this in English. But yeah, I hope that was mostly clear. I will double check the differences between the ch and the u and stuff so that I can answer those questions for anybody who asks about it next week. I'm going to be busy this coming Friday, but ask me your questions anyway, and I can answer them through text. Yeah, and let me know what you guys thought of the video. I'm going to try and figure out a better situation for my recording, and I'm going to get new whiteboard markers and everything so that it's easy for everybody to follow along with the lessons. But yeah, I hope this was good enough for today. Inshallah, everybody understands at least the basics of writing in Cyrillic, in the Russian script. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to let me know. If you try writing out some simple words, maybe some of the vocabulary words from Unit 1, send us a picture in the group chat, and we can all practice together, and we can check each other's handwriting, and then we can all hopefully improve, inshallah. So that's it for today. I will be available for anybody who has questions in our 2 group chats, but otherwise I will see you guys in a few days' time. Thanks for watching. See you next time.